Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and Brad and I are continuing our top 100 games of all time. This is 70 through 61. The weird kind of in the middle of the top top 50 or bottom 50. I don't know. Um yeah, so let's just jump right into it, shall we?
Sure.
For this segment, I have 1, 3, 6, 9, 10. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 that fell, 3 new ones. No, sorry, 3 that rose and 1 new one.
I have one new one, two that rose, and the rest fell.
All right. All right. You know, it is interesting because I'm looking at like kind of like the rest of the list, and it seems like, yeah, the top 50 obviously should have the most that fell. And it's almost like right in the middle should have the most new ones.
Right.
And then the ones up at the top should have the ones that rose. Um, or stay the same. But yeah, kind of want to go through the old top 100s and just to see kind of like calculate how many rose, how many fell,
Yeah,
like
that's true.
total of the whole list,
Yeah.
and just to see if it's getting better year to year. Anyway, that's for another time. Let's go ahead and talk about my number 70, which is a game that I only have the original core set for. However, with the latest Game Found that made them a shit ton of money, I am getting everything for this, and I don't know why, because apparently I don't play it. This was number 20 last year, and number 34 in 2021. And of course, you know, Tale as Old as Time. The reason why this fell was just because I haven't played it. This is kind of a beast to play. Last year, I do remember playing it, so it's just kind of like getting the right group together, and that is Nemesis or Alien. By Awakened Realms. They are a fantastic company. I pretty much love almost everything that they make, and Nemesis is no exception. Um, this is one of those kind of games that if you play it, you can actually like if you play it, you're either gonna have a really, really good time or a bad time. Like it is a fragile game, unfortunately, just because of you need to be in the right headspace or things kind of need to go a certain way to make the game enjoyable. But for me, I've only had one bad experience with this game. The rest have been amazing. The bad experience was I played it with full player count. Don't do that. Like it's just way too long and just not that exciting whenever the ship gets explored by like the end of the first round. But the time after that, I played with 4, and that's kind of where I think it sings because you still have a sense of exploration. You still have the element of the trader or potential trader, and you still have enough aliens running around and becoming a problem. One thing this game does super well is that you have a like a cooperative objective and a competitive objective, and the only time you make a decision is once the first alien pops on the board. So things have happened a little bit that could kind of be like, oh, I need player 3 to die, and he's the one that popped the alien. Well, I was gonna go cooperative, but now I'm gonna try and
Right.
make sure that he dies. Uh, there's a lot of stuff that's going on, like searching the rooms, making sure the engines are functioning, making sure that the ship is heading in the right destination, trying to self-destruct the ship if you're a trader. It all the while the aliens are incredibly dynamic. They have a bunch of different types with the first core set, the Carnomorphs and the I think it's Void Seekers. And each of those aliens just play completely different, which is really cool. They have made now 2, I think, full standalone things, Lockdown and what was the new one? Retribution? Nemesis, Retaliation. That's the new one. And they all kind of seem to connect in some way,
Right.
uh, but play different, and that's really cool. They also have an expansion for this one called Aftermath, which is where you play a different crew that shows up. You play it after your game of Nemesis because it's them showing up to the aftermath of that game, which is pretty cool. And I think they do have a campaign, but I haven't done that. So it's one of the greatest experiences you can have when things are firing on all cylinders, but you could have games where kind of nothing exciting happens. So I don't know if it's ever going to pop up all the way to 20 again, but if I play it, I could definitely obviously see it go up. So that's my number 70, Nemesis.
All right. Yep, yep. All right, well, I'm gonna go on a little different track here. And my number 70 was 54 last year, so it dropped a little bit. And this was one that back in the day when I heard about this game, it didn't enthuse me. The theme didn't really do anything for me either. But then when I started playing it, it actually ended up being a really good game. I think you will like this one as well. And that is Quacks of Quedlinburg.
I've played this game.
Huh?
I've played this game.
Right. Do you like it though?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, I thought you said I think you would like this
Oh,
game.
no. I think I said you will like or do like it.
Okay.
So.
I'm like, yeah. Well, good job, I do.
But this one, it's got a lot of replayability in the box because everybody ends up with their own little potion pot or whatever you want to call it. And it's kind of got a push your luck element because you have chits in a bag, you're pulling chits out and then putting them in your potion, and you're trying to get as far as you can without busting. And if you get, I think it's 7 points worth of cherry bombs, that it pops, and then you don't get the point. You can either get points or buy something. You can't do both. But if you don't bust, then you get to do both things. You get the victory points for it, and you can purchase stuff. And you're gonna obviously be putting more and more good chips in your bag, so you're gonna be able to go further around the pot, getting higher and higher points, getting more rubies, getting all these different things. The thing that makes that's replayable about this is there's a bunch of those books that are in the center of this picture are what each of those ingredients do. So like the blue ones, there's, I don't know how many books there are now for the blue, but they're double-sided, and there's like 3 or 4 of them maybe. So you're getting a lot of different variation out of the blue tokens. You're getting a lot of variations out of each of the colors depending on what books you choose. And then it also has that catch-up mechanic where on the score track there's little rats, and however many rat tails are between you and the person in front of you, you get to move up that many spots on, start ahead a little bit in your pot from the center. So it's just one of those. It's an easy game to teach.
Yep.
And it's pretty self-explanatory for what you do. You're pushing your luck, you're trying not to bust, and I do like that I haven't messed with a lot of the stuff from the expansions to know how far they go, but they do have the basic setup, what books to use that are basic, but then they have some that get more convoluted, so you can kind of play around with it that way. But yeah, I mean, this was a solid one. It hit hard when it came out. It's still kind of a evergreen one right now as it is.
Yeah, I do really enjoy this. A couple years back, it actually made the top 100 because I think back then I was actually able to teach my mom this game,
Right. Yeah.
which I was like, oh my God, finally. But since then it hasn't hit the top 100. But yeah, it's still really good. I have both the expansions for it. If you're gonna get anything before the expansions, get the Geek Up
Yes.
bits and the bags. Because, well, maybe not the bags, but definitely the plastic things, because drawing, fucking cardboard from a bag, just, to me, it's almost disgusting now. I have no idea why, but just like the grime on your fingers just makes the cardboard feel weird. And then they stick together. And that's usually because I'm busted in this game. I'm sorry, I'm 5. But yeah, get the plastic upgrades that you're gonna thank me if you do, and it'll make this game a lot better. But no, you're correct. This game is a lot of fun.
Yep.
All right. My number 79. I almost talked about a different game. My number 79 rose from last year and the year before. It was number 88 in 2022 and 89 in 2021. And this game has actually gotten a little bit more love, and I've played it a lot more since then because it's just a extremely solid co-op, and that is Roll Camera, the filmmaking board game. This one has gotten a B movie expansion and a few like minor like promo like expansions that they've released. But as far as I'm aware, the designer of this game is a filmmaker. So he designed the game centered around that. Now, if you were to look at this game and you see the artwork of whatever it is, I guess they're beans. No idea why they went that route. But whenever you're actually playing, you realize, oh, this is a very strict cooperative game. Like the theme wants it to be whimsical, and it is like before the game and after the game, it's very whimsical. But during the game, you're pretty crunched for time and finances. So on your turn, you have to deal with an event or a potential problem, and then you roll dice that have these faces on it that you place in various locations to be able to deal with, the event, or to build sets, or to film scenes, and to go and use your own special abilities. There's a lot that is going on, and over time, you have to manage actual time as well as budget. And if either one of those ever hits zero before you film 5 scenes, then you lose. And the whole point of the game is you're trying to get positive or kind of like negative points to move your track out of this pink section. And either you make a so bad it's good movie or a critically acclaimed Oscar movie. So you can either make what's a so bad it's good movie? Sharknado.
Yeah.
So you can either make Sharknado or you can make Schindler's List. That's kind of like what your overall goal is. But the amount of cooperation and synergy between all the players is done really, really well by just utilizing these dice. It gets extremely tight. You have these idea cards in your hand that kind of help break the rules, and you have to call team meetings, and then everyone can put in an idea card and be like, okay, here's one that might help, and you have to pick one or try and save one and trash one. All like, because here's the thing, is like whenever I talk about whimsy, the director, for example, the player privilege, that's not even the ability, that's just something they have. This one is you may loudly shout action when shooting. That's not anything game related, but that's the whimsy that they want to put into the game.
Right.
His actual abilities are the compromise, redraw, and refresh stuff. But kind of like some other games that do this, if you do win, you're supposed to kind of like tell what your movie's about, based off the 5 scenes. And the B movie expansion just adds more content, and you try to throw in different genres into your movie. So I think this game works very, very well. The deluxe edition is like the clacker thing. Like that's what the board comes in, so that's just cool. So they really did an awesome job of evoking this theme, and it's a unique one. So that is why it is my number 69.
This one always looks like whenever I look at the box cover, it reminds me of like a party game.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not,
Yep.
but
Yeah, you would think that it would be like a improv game of like you trying to make, and they have that. I think it's by Portal Movie Script, where you're supposed to try and make up a movie.
right.
Yeah, exactly. You would 100% think that this is a party-esque light filler game, and it is not. It is very
Interesting.
difficult.
All right. Well, my number 69 was 40 last year. So it dropped quite a bit. It's mainly just because I haven't played it. It's kind of an old school cooperative game. I'll always own it because I love the art in it. And it's a good game overall. We played it a couple years ago and did a review of it. Not a review, a discussion, I guess.
Okay.
And that is Defenders of the Realm.
Nice.
I don't know where this game stands right now. I know they were talking about making a new version, and then it went away. And then I've heard rumors there was possibly another version of it coming out.
Yeah, it's the one with the artwork that you definitely don't like.
Was that it's by the people that did it's by Greater Than Games, right? That is getting ready to do it, I think. But
Yeah, Defenders of the Realm, Legends Retold.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean
Greater Than Games.
I love this Larry Elmore art. Like this is old school D&D art.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it looks dated on the table and stuff, but this game is still outstanding. The dragon expansion's too brutal, so playing it's hard enough just playing it the regular way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of ultimately it's a tower defense kind of sort of game where you're trying to defend Monarch City, and there's these four main bad guy groups that are working their way down those little tracks towards the center of the board, and you're bouncing around taking out their minions and stuff. It has kind of a pandemic mechanic because if there's gets to be too many of one color of minion on a space, then it gets tainted, and you have to go from there. And there's a lot of cool stuff. You have your own personal missions. There's a lot of dice checking in this game, and there's tons of characters too. If you have all the characters, there's this big old fat stack of heroes that you can choose. And yeah, I mean this, like I said, doesn't look like much on the table necessarily, but it's mechanically it's a really good game. And then you have your art and stuff on the player cards and stuff like that, but you're ultimately trying to gain enough cards, have enough cards in your hand that have that, so you can roll that many dice to take on those bad guys, because the bad guys have X number of hit points and
Right.
stuff, and you're trying to get as many of those dice together as you can go up against them. So there's that time pressure, of them trying to get into Monarch City, and you're just kind of hold them off. I mean, it's like I said, it's not an easy game by any means. And they re-implemented it with Defenders of the Last Stand, which wasn't, I mean, it brought a little more story elements into it, but it was post-apocalyptic. I still prefer this one. This one's kind of hard to find now. So if it sounds interesting, see what the new version is going to look like, but
yeah, based off the description, it seems like it's going to be the kind of a similar game, but updated. So
yeah.
I don't know. I do not like the artwork for the new
Oh,
one.
I do not at all. So,
But who knows? Yeah, this game's solid. There's actually a game right now that's on Kickstarter. It'll probably be over by the time this video comes up, but it's done by the designers of Terraforming Mars, and it's called like Fray,
interesting.
and it's another kind of tower defense game that, as you were describing Defenders of the Realm, I'm like, oh yeah, that's actually kind of Fate, Defenders of Grimheim.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like it's another kind of tower defense thing, which I don't really own a whole lot of now that I think about it. That's kind of a theme that just has eluded me. But yeah, Defenders of the Realm, that's a really old one, but solid one at the same time.
We say really old, 2010.
I mean, that's 14 years ago.
I know, but
Like,
it just seems like,
like with
this-
how much the game industry has changed. Yeah, this is like archaic. 2010 even seems like it would have been like, yeah, I guess that makes sense because I think Pandemic came out in 2008.
yeah.
So yeah, I guess so. All right. Good choice. My number 68 also rose. It was 154 last year and 122 the year before. So unlike another game of the last segment that really just shot up, this one I think is justified a little bit more. One, because I played it, and two, it's just because the writing for it is so good. And that is Forgotten Waters. So this was, I think, the first game that Plaid had made whenever Isaac took back the company.
Well,
I think it was
Isaac
Isaac.
didn't back then. It was Colby.
It was
Is
Colby,
the
that's it. I couldn't remember who. Yeah, whenever they got the the rights back to just kind of be their own thing. I think this was their first game
yeah, I
that
think so.
they put out. And it's a Crossroads game, which, if you're familiar with Dead of Winter, was that system of cards that would have like prompts at the top that if the conditions were met, then an event would happen. Dead of Winter was a zombie game, so whenever this one was coming out about pirates, I was like, oh hell yeah, like let's give this a shot. And it is done so well. Now there's no more deck of cards, it's all driven through the app. And so you'll have those types of Crossroads events happen, organically throughout the app. But what you're doing is you're picking a scenario again through the app, and you're kind of going through a fantastical pirate story where you're going from location to location, moving your ship around, actually traveling, checking out, islands and having encounters there, gaining fame and notoriety for your character. Because what you're personally trying to do is get constellation points that you will eventually fill out, that if you get a certain number of stars on your constellation, then that will kind of dictate how good of an ending you have. They did an awesome job with this one of when you're making your character, you fill out these Mad Lib style questions, and whenever you're reading like your backstory, it'll tell you which ones to read, and that's hilarious. The game is super, super funny, and not in like a forced, hey, everyone here has to be funny. Like, the writing is genuinely hilarious. And the game is relatively simple. You have your standee. When you go to a location on the map, you're timed to go to a spot. And really, what you're just kind of supposed to do is you're supposed to pick a spot that sounds fun. And you just go there, and then top to bottom of that list, you perform an action, do a check. If you pass, then something happens. If you fail, something happens. And you just kind of rinse and repeat and just get engrossed in the story. I've done, and the cool thing is I've done the same story multiple times, and it's had, yeah, the same general beats, but different events have happened that make it just not monotonous to play over and over. So yeah, like I'm pretty sure they're done with this one because they've released a game that was basically this but fantasy. But it's always weird because they said they have DLC pack number 1, and it's like, well, why don't you have DLC pack number 2? I don't like, that's kind of lame. But they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have six scenarios to play in. So yeah, and that might not sound like a lot, but because of the different outcomes you can have from game to game and the different characters you can play, you're gonna have like there's replayability here. So really enjoy this one. It's a lot of fun. It's hilarious. The voice acting, I mean, Plaid Hat, I don't know how they do it, but their voice acting for their games is top notch. It's some of the best just overall. And yeah, that is my number 68, Forgotten Waters.
All right. My number 68 also rose a pretty good chunk. And it was 97 last year.
Ooh,
And
okay.
it mainly rose just because I actually have played it a few times this year. I think it might actually be on our list to play as well, but it's probably going to, the potential of this one falling off this list entirely will depend on another iteration of this game that's coming out here in like 2 months. And that is the Star Wars Destiny. The premise of this game was awesome when it came out. Having the big dice, you have all the cards. It was a CCG through Fantasy Flight. They kind of fumbled it because the community was really hot when this game first came out. and then they had dice production issues, and they were slow putting out stuff, and people moved on to other things, and so then it just kind of sputtered out. I have tons of stuff for this game. I have tons of decks built. You can you're pretty much just picking some good guys or bad guys, and you're just battling each other until you take the other ones out. Um, and some certain cards will be attached to die, so you'll have all the dice kind of on the side on a sideboard, but then once you pay to play that card out, then that dice goes out on that card, and then there's a roll phase that you'll do, and the dice do, there's different symbols that do different things. And it's a really cool 1v1 game. I mean, it's a shame that it sputtered out because of dice issues, because when it was going, it was a really fun game to play. Now,
Yeah.
Star Wars Unlimited is coming out, release March 8th. And I've dove into that as well. So if that doesn't have any dice, so I'm hoping maybe they'll keep up with it better and they won't have that issue, and they'll keep the competitive scene rolling maybe. But maybe that might finally be my Netrunner replacement. But
Are they still the ones who make Keyforge?
no, they
Is it still
sold it.
Fantasy Flight?
The guy
They sold it.
Yeah, it went. The guy that used to run FFG was the main guy behind that, and then he left FFG, started his own company, and got the rights to it. And then
Okay.
those game found projects they've been doing with Keyforge is separate.
Yeah,
of
because
that,
I was like,
you know?
oh, well, they've been keeping Keyforge alive, so maybe, but no,
No,
they sold it, and
no,
he's been keeping it alive.
it died because their little whatever you call it, the program that set up all the random stuff faltered. So
Got it.
then they had to stop. But anyway, this is a really cool 1v1 game. If I mean it spans all Star Wars, books, movies, TV shows, video games. I mean it spans everything. And I think that's what the Unlimited is going to do as well. But yeah, I mean this is a really cool game. If you can get your hands on, you can buy complete and not complete sets, but you can buy big collections from people for pretty reasonably priced anymore, just because with it being dead. I mean, when if you pay attention to online retailers, like they have entire gravity feeds of cards, and I think I bought 8 gravity feeds at one point of all these different kinds, and the gravity feeds were down to like $18, and they're normally like 100
Yeah,
some.
they can't give them away.
So I just got a ton of stuff for it, and a gravity feed would come with every gravity pack that you'd buy came with one card or one dice, and I think 4 or 5 cards. So
Now, did that die like go to those 5
it
cards?
it won.
Okay.
One of the cards was associated with that dice.
Oh, I
Yes.
see.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely give it a shot. Just so you have someone to play it with.
yeah.
I'm
So
hesitant about card games that use dice because I liked Ashes,
mhm.
but then as I kept playing Ashes, I got really annoyed with the dice system because it was like, okay, let me be, you know, meticulous with my card play and then hope the dice work for me. That's kind of what keeps me from thinking that this game would be any good.
Yeah,
But
the good thing is like each dice, um, like as denoted, I don't know if you can tell, like this very bottom card down here, how it has all these deals
mhm,
right here. That's all the faces of the die. So
okay,
five of the faces are going to give you something. They're either going to be attack, currency, the special ability, and then the red is a miss. So it's like all these only have like one miss. A lot of them, and most of them will give you something. Whether
gotcha.
it's currency to buy or anything like that. So, but yeah, it is. It adds little bit of randomness to it.
Okay,
So,
well, I have no idea. But yeah, hopefully Star Wars
unlimited.
Unlimited does
Push.
well enough. But Fantasy Flight doesn't have that great of a track record. So we'll
It's
see.
going to take down Magic.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like Lorcana was supposed to do, and that's already dead. Everyone's like, oh wait a minute, it's just Disney.
Right.
We hate Disney. What are we doing? Yeah, dude, nothing's taking down Magic except Magic.
Yep.
All right. My number 67. Fell actually quite a ways, and this one's really interesting because it was 27 last year and 46 the year before. Now, that's not that interesting, but what is interesting is this is a massive campaign game that I have finished on the channel, and I had a great time throughout the campaign, so I'm wondering if it fell because I'm done with
Right.
this particular act. The next act I think is supposed to come out. Actually, I think both of them are supposed to come out this year. Um, so I'll probably lump them together. But my number 67 is Midara, Unintentional Malum Act 1. Now, I have my issues with Midara. There are a few fundamental things, and they're not like small issues, and I'm like, it doesn't really matter. They're pretty big issues. However, um, the storytelling and the writing is because in a lot of games that have, narrative driven campaigns, it's kind of like you enjoy the story as you're playing and then you kind of move on. Once you're done, like board gaming doesn't, at least to me, the writing doesn't ever really stick with you like reading a book or watching a show does.
Right.
Midara has done something that's different in that the person I was playing with, we would actually try and theory craft or talk about the story after we're done. Like, oh, what do you think is going to happen? Do we think anyone's going to die? Who's your favorite character? So they've done something that no other type of narrative driven, like Sleeping Gods, I don't do that. Tainted Grail or any of these other narrative driven campaigns because they also feel so self-contained. Whereas Midara has this narrative driven game, is what they call it, where it's a monster of story. Like, I have a full series on this and it's actually done and uploaded, so you can definitely go watch it from start to finish.
Right.
And there are a handful of just pure episodes where me and my friend Devin are just sitting there listening to a story. And these are like potentially 20 minutes of just sitting there. Now, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you get the Foreteller app, because if I had to read this out loud, I'd hate this game. There's no way. There's no way there's so much reading. Anyway, so that's why this game is amazing and has me kind of overlook some of the issues. But at the same time, if you're wanting a JRPG style game, this is one of the best, and if not the only one that kind of does that. You have written characters that they kind of like tell you what items to take at the very beginning of the game. It's like, hey, this is kind of their play style or how we envision their play style, but I'm dying. But you can build them however you want. Like as you level up and stuff, you get so much gold that you're like, hey, I'm gonna try this build. And sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. For me, it was one character was super badass, and the other one I had a vision for, and it just never ever panned out until the very end when we finally got it to work. But you get a bunch of different characters that you can just kit out with a ton of different just builds, like really cool busted builds. Um, that is just awesome. This is a kind of like a a plethora of items and equipment that you can get, all dependent on how much you want to go and explore during the scenarios. Because sometimes it's like, hey, go way out of your way to this chest and you might get something. Um, the one thing that made this game really grueling is like if I was playing like, because obviously when I do campaigns, I try to record a bunch of sessions all at once. By the end of my sessions with this, I'm fuming because I'm just like it relies on dice, literally. They're custom dice and they're color coded with different faces and stuff. So like you theoretically should do better, but you never really feel like you're doing better because the enemies also level up. So it's like, well, like yeah, I should hit, but I'm missing all the time because the numbers feel more skewed to missing. Um, so that just gets incredibly frustrating when all you do your entire turn is miss. And the bosses are awful. There are a lot of bosses in this game. Thematically, they're cool. The boss fights themselves are absolute trash. Because it's like, hey, how about instead of making, an AI boss that works really cool, we give it 1600 health. It's like, okay, how about you just fuck right off? And I just say I fought the boss, but not actually do that. So again, I'm not actually that surprised that it fell because I'm done with Act 1, but I mean, I'm super excited for Act 2 and Act 3. Like that's kind of like where I'm at. And if the story wasn't as good as it was, I would have quit. Like the gameplay to me isn't good enough to warrant that, but man, yeah, I'm very excited to see where they go with the story. And yeah, and it seems like Succubus Publishing is really good about putting out content, unlike KDM, where it's like, how about we take people's money and finally deliver it 10 years later. Um, this one, they seem really big on just adding more and more small content, more and more ways to play. So I'm very curious to see what they do once they're done with Acts 2, and 3. But that remains to be seen. As of right now, my number 67 is Madara, Unintentional Malum, Act 1.
All right. My number 67 is my other one that rose, and it was 85 last year. It rose mainly because I had a really good play of this game with a decent sized group not too often long ago. You don't like this game at all. I think you would, if you, in a perfect world, if you would try this game with 4 or 5 players
Oh, okay.
and not and like be able to Men in Black blink your experience from the first time we played this out and
Yeah,
went
right.
into it new, then you might enjoy it better. And that is Spartacus, and that's a awesome German cover, it looks like. But
Ein Spiel über Blut und Fett.
I can read that. It says a game of blood and treachery.
Nice, dude. That's amazing.
But yeah, this one has been on my list on, I mean, like up and down a lot throughout the years, depending on if it gets played or not. This is one of those games that the more players you have, the funner it is, because there's a bunch of wheeling and dealing, and you don't have to really follow any strict rules as far as you can make any kind of deals with people that you want. It doesn't matter. I mean, but you don't have to keep it. Obviously, you can screw people. You can do any of this stuff.
Yeah. Woo.
Yeah, there's and I put this cover specifically. This is the one I have. I don't like the dumb new version cover that they have, but not to say this one's great, but I don't like the new cover either. But yeah, this one it's really cool because you're controlling, you're a dominus, you're a person that leads a house in these times, and you are gathering slaves and gladiators, and you are working behind the scenes to try to get your favor up. Favor is how you win the game. You can choose at the beginning. All the players can decide how much favor you need to get in order to win, and whatever number that is, you have to have that favor at the end of the round. So there's a lot of, oh, he's winning, we're all going to team up on him. So the games do last a long time, but ultimately there's all these different phases where there's these cards that are take that cards, and you're bouncing back and forth with stuff. And you have the phase where you actually auction off or try to purchase gladiators or weapons or stuff like that on the market. And then you have the phase where you're getting ready to do the gladiatorial games. Then you have to wager to see who's going to host the games. So whoever hosts the games automatically gains one of those favor points, that the victory points that goes towards the end. And then they also get to choose the houses that participate, so they can kind of look and kind of either hose people or vice versa. But and then everybody around the table on the corners of each of the boards, you can wager whether there's an injury, who's going to win, if there's a decapitation, all this different stuff. So you can wager points there. And then they battle it out, and it's hex based. It's very basic hex based battling at that point. But you're rolling. You have different stats, like you can see on this card here. This person has 3, 3, and 3. So when they go into battle, they're going to roll 3 red dice, 3 black dice, 3 blue dice. They roll all that. The blue is their speed and movement. Their red is their attack, and their black is their defense. So then you line all those up. Or actually, you roll the blue, and that's how much you get the move first. That's your priority. And then when you do the attack and defense, you roll the dice and you line them up, and there's this whole dice resolution thing. But anyway, this game, like I said, will take a while just because of that whole thing where you have to have that amount of points at the end of the round. So everybody's trying to really hose you out of it. So it's kind of a back and forth kind of thing. But it also, there's very few games I've played that have had that, everybody standing up at the end. It comes down to one big dice roll to see who wins type thing too. So this is just a really good gathering type game, and it works really good if you have people that know the game well, because then the whole wheeling and dealing becomes everybody's more familiar with the comings and goings of it. But yeah, I mean, that's my 67.
Yeah, it's really interesting because these kinds of games just don't get made anymore.
Right.
Like, one, I think, I don't know when the new version came out. But yeah, the original came out in 2012. I think that's whenever the show was coming out.
Yeah.
God, that show was horrible. I know you like it, but you also probably love Game of Thrones season 8. So
I didn't hate it.
See, all right. Well, there you go.
But it wasn't
everyone's credibility of you. They were like, I kind of like Brad's picks, and then you said I didn't hate the end of Game of Thrones, and then so all that's out the window. However, yeah, these games just do not get made anymore. Like, if this game were to come out again, it would be completely stripped down into probably more of a hybrid Euro. Instead of like die rolling, it'd be card-based combat or something. But so it definitely is kind of like a product of its time for sure.
Well, and if you don't like this theme, there's the X-Men Mutant Revolution, which is
I saw that, yeah.
It's the X-Men version of this game. So
yeah, which apparently has a worse, because Spartacus has a 7.5 and the X-Men whatever has like a 6.7.
Well,
which
the theme doesn't make sense on the X-Men one. That's why.
But yeah, and also like a 6.7 on Board Game Geek is basically like a 2. But yeah, I mean, I'd be more than willing to jump into a full player count of this game. You just never invite me, so.
Well, it's hard to get 6 people though, too. I mean, that's that want to play it.
Well, like there's you, there's the 2 Chads, there's me. That's 4.
Yeah.
There's John. Bring him in. John and Kevin.
Oh, gosh.
We can beat them both up.
Make a secret pact to just knock them out early.
No, yeah, in real life. Anyway, yeah, so not a good pick. Number 66. This is the last one of the series that rose. It was 74 last year and 93 the year before. So slowly going up. And this was a game that introduced another big box storage solution. And this one is actually a lot easier to kind of get to the table. I think the big box is done really well, and it added an expansion that we were asking for, and I really like the expansion, and that is Vindication. So Orange Nebula, they don't make a lot of games, but the games that they do make are really unique. Like, they have kind of an awesome, business model. Because Vindication, they supported a ton, and then Unsettled, it has a ton of content as well. And then their new one that they're working on is Spirit Fire. So they really just try and kind of like push the design boundary. But Vindication, I remember when this came out, was everyone saying it was a thematic Euro. And then you look at the board and then you're like, what?
Right.
Because the whole theming of it, which it does have elements of theme, even just stripped down base game, is that you're just this piece of shit who washed up on shore and you are doing things throughout the land that are vindicating yourself, like making you just kind of like turn your whole life around in this really not whimsical, in this really fantastical world. Um, and the newest expansion, the reason why it rose was because it actually added legitimate story elements, like not riding like my previous selection of Madara, but kind of like you go to inns or you go to the arcane school or you go to the hunt monsters, and every single one of those locations will have kind of like a story encounter where you make a decision on how you want to overcome that challenge, and that'll kind of dictate and swing in the way that you're going to vindicate yourself. Can you go to the
Oh,
picture?
yes. Sorry.
Perfect. That is a perfect picture right there. Because when you look at the board, you're thinking, oh my God, yeah, that doesn't look thematic at all. But the way that you move on these triangles, and around the board are kind of like the different I don't know what those are called, like characteristics of yourself, and
Probably.
that's kind of like, huh?
Yeah, I was agreeing.
Oh, okay. Um, and you have the primary ones, which are the red, blue, and yellow ones, and then eventually you can combine those cubes that you place there to get the harder ones of orange, green, and purple, which will allow you to spend those for various actions and various abilities. But yeah, really, the game is super simple. On your turn, you just move on the triangle spaces and interact with a location. And kind of do what that location does, gaining companions, gaining items, all to try and vindicate yourself. And it's it's just so unique. It's really, really cool. The expansions that they added are great. The One of the really cool things about Vindication is how the game actually ends. Is you have a bunch of endgame victory cards, or not endgame victory, endgame condition cards, that once a certain number of those are met, that will actually end the game, and more get revealed as the game goes on. So eventually the game will end, but you're not quite sure how until like in the middle of the game. So it's really, really cool. Orange Nebula's writing, I think, is one of the best. It's top notch. They actually, I know it's not really related to Vindication, but Unsettled is a game that I owned and got rid of, and I'm wanting to get it back again just because I was like, that was a really unique game. So if you want a kind of cool hybrid, like a thematic Euro, then check out Vindication.
Yep. We may talk about that later. We'll see.
Ooh.
We'll see. All right. My number 66 is my new game to this list, and it is by no means a new game. This game came out in 2010.
Okay.
But I just got it played for the first time this last year. And it's one of those games that fell here, but I still feel like I'm scratching the surface of this game. Like I need to play it more. And I don't even know. I've never heard you talk about it, so I don't even know if you've played this or not. But that is Schwa.
No, because I've played Black Angel.
Yeah, so I mean basically that's a rehash of this, from what I hear. And the art's kind of, it's there. It's not the greatest looking
It's
thing in
it's
the world,
Renaissance art.
right? But this is ultimately what this game is it's a dice worker placement game. I mean, that's ultimately where it comes down to. The theme on this one though is you're going through the game goes through several a long amount of time, a few centuries or whatever. But in France, of course, well, but you are going to be um have your own dice. You're going to have your own cards. They're going to do different things. You're kind of taking care of your own area of the population, and the also in the card stuff is broken up into three different deals. There's three different domains, I guess, is what you want to say, which is civil, religious, military. I mean, you're just kind of doing weird stuff with it. Well, that's have to kind of look in there quite a bit, but all your dice are there, go into the center area there that you can kind of see, and you are, you know, getting characters for your deal. It's one of those games that, and I don't know how that even sounds, if that even sounds like your Black Angel. I mean, because is it dice placement?
Black
Your
Angel, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, it kind of does the system where the yeah, like the dice aren't yours. Like
right.
you roll them and people can like draft your dice.
Yes. Yes.
Um so which I've heard is done in Twa. I actually just
Yeah.
looked it up. Black Angel is the exact same designers.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just an updated retheme because, um, like on this one, I don't know because I've never played Black Angel, but this one, you're like working on a cathedral. It's kind of your typical French, old school French stuff. You're just dealing all that junk and everything. But there's a solo mode for the version I got that I haven't played yet. Um, but this is one that I've only played it at two players as well, and I'm not sure what the best is. Looks like it says best at three. Um, this would be one I'd want to try again, and I'd be interested, maybe even to try it with you, just since uh, Black Angel, and
Yeah.
it probably would be pretty self-explanatory playing this for all as you'd know the base version of it. But yeah, and then there's expansions. There's the Ladies of Twa. I'm not sure exactly what that adds and stuff like that. Well, this is all I have, and like I said, I've only played it a couple times, but I can tell I love dice placement games anyway. Lorenzo, Magnifico, stuff like that. So these kind of games will be ones that will hang around until I either figure them out and they aren't fun anymore, or if there's a lot of different veins or ways to play it, I guess. Um, so yeah, so this one we'll see where it goes next year, but I assume if I get it played quite a bit more and it still stays interesting, it'll be Rising.
Cool. Cool. All right. My number 65 is a game that we talked about on the last segment, I think on your list. Well, yeah, it was obviously on your list. Did I put it on there? It was number 40 last year and number 18 the year before. Uh, and yeah, it's a fantastic game in this genre and has overpassed its competitor when it came out a couple years back. And that is Chronicles of Crime. This is a really cool detective game, as we kind of talked about in the last segment, where you utilize VR to look around certain locations, which is just really neat. Lucky Duck does fantastic app work, sometimes too good, depending on certain games. But this one, it's like one of the cool things about this one is that people move. You have locations and you have, in a lot of like the previous ones, everything was very linear on how you found out information. If you were talking to someone, you got their info, and then um like if you got conflicting info, you kind of just had to assume that maybe the person was lying,
Right.
and or read into it a little bit more. And here it's not like that. Like if you go to the park and you talk to someone and they're like, "Oh yeah, I have no idea like who that person was," but then you gather information elsewhere, you can and get more of those QR codes. You can go back to that location and present that new information to them to get new uh leads and stuff. And I think that that makes this game super dynamic. Or if it's like, oh, well, let's go back to Hyde Park because that's where we talked to that guy, and then he's not there. So you're like, well, shit. Like, it just makes sense. The writing is done very well. The whodunit aspect is awesome. And then they're all over the place with their theme. Like they have modern day, and then they have like the Renaissance, and then they have, the future. And then some fake ones where you're like uh where you're like in like a Stranger Things kind of thing, a noir setting. So they've done a really good job of making this game not feel kind of like repetitive. And the other cool thing is like as long as you get the main question right, you succeed. Like if
Right.
it's like a who done it what?
That was a green.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's like so if you figure out who the murderer is, you still succeed on the case. Your score might not be amazing because you missed out on the other stuff, but you still pass. And that's nice instead of being like, oh, well, our score was 10 because Sherlock Holmes did in 4 leads and we did in 30. But yeah, I over time, I know a couple years back, I would keep Detective Modern Crime board game and this one neck and neck. I think the feeling of Detective is better, like how you're feeling while you're playing the game, but I think this game is better. So it's just stood the test of time. It got supported way better than Detective Modern Crime board game did. So yeah, I'm pretty sure they're done, but there are a ton of cases to do. And honestly, for me, I don't retain like all the cases. So
Right.
as years go by, like I've redone Sherlock Holmes cases because I just like, oh, I don't remember. And then I play them and I'm like, yep, didn't remember any of that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I could do the exact same thing here. So
Oh, I'm
tons of
sure.
replayability.
All right.
That's
Yeah.
my
Good choice.
65.
All right. My number 65 fell significantly. It was 32 last year, and I think it was new to the list last year. But this one fell mainly because I haven't played it, even though new content has come out this year for this game. Um, and when you start looking at the stuff that's higher than this, that's getting played more. I mean, this one just kind of fell back a little bit. Not because it's a bad game or anything, but it's only so much time in the day. That is Role Player Adventures.
Nice.
So this one hit really hard. When I first put on the list last year, I think it debuted at the 32. And this was what role player players were asking for. Be able to play your, create a character in Role Player and then bring them into this. They already had, then they also already have pre-made characters, so it's not like you have to do it that way. But we actually did a really, really early recording for this game
Yeah, we did.
before it was like in an early prototype. But
Which
yeah,
actually stayed the same. Like
yeah,
that first
yeah,
case we did was pretty much the game.
yeah. So yeah, this one runs you through the world. You're in the world of Role Player, and like I said, you can run your characters from that and bring them into this. There's a way to do that. You are going through these adventures, and it's kind of got that RPG element in it where you're getting your items and doing and powering up your characters and stuff, almost to a fault sometimes. Because what I ran into with my box, and I don't know if you did, I'm only about halfway through the original box right now. But
Okay.
have you run into the issue where your person's almost getting too powerful to where it's
Yeah,
like,
when they actually changed that in the expansion,
okay, so
I
you
think
haven't
they
done the expansion yet.
well, they updated the rules
Okay.
mainly. I think the expansion comes with a updated rule set where they either have a variant, like a difficulty scaling thing, or they trim down the amount of like camping that you can do. Because yes, you get way too many cards that you could basically like you're like, oh, this chest. This check needs, white and red dice, and then you only draw blues, and you're like, okay, doesn't matter. I'm gonna play these millions of cards
Yeah.
and just completely get past every single check. Um, so yeah, you definitely get kind of OP, which some people might like. I mean, it is D&D. I mean, really kind of at its core. So I know you've never played D&D, like kind of like, but
I have, but just not very much.
well, sorry, well, yeah, I guess like, but to a finished campaign
Oh no.
where you're just like busted.
Yeah, we
Like,
just did one shots. So,
yeah, you eventually get to a point where you're like, you have to go fight gods because nothing else can kill
yeah.
you. That's kind of how it is here. So
Well,
can't
and
say it's not
that
thematic.
would be something that I need to look into because, like I said, I haven't played this for several months. That's why it fell down anyway.
Hmm.
So I need to try to incorporate that maybe because I was getting pretty stacked and it wasn't really much of a challenge there.
Yeah.
And that was almost halfway through the box, so
Hmm.
it's like, but yeah, I mean, this is one of those that if you like that world, um, this just brings more to it. There was a lot of hype with this when it came out, and their expansions just keep popping out with more books and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And they're heavy ass boxes, man.
Hmm.
All those books and crap in there.
Yeah.
And the writing. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say the expansion, the Nephira's Judgment, which is
Hmm.
really just like a background storybook, I think adds a lot kind of like to this game because whenever you build your character, you kind of have a backstory, and when you go to certain chapters and locations, you have your own unique kind of thing that's going on. Um, that's a really cool, just smaller expansion, I guess, because it's not like more maps or more chapters.
Right, right.
But yeah, very excited to see where they go with this. I haven't had a chance to play the Golpax's
I
Secret,
haven't either, obviously.
um, but it does add more chapters, and it doesn't. I think it's like it's either thousands of years before or after this one. So yeah, you can't take your previous characters and throw them in. You have to make new ones.
Right.
I know that much. So I'm really hoping they just keep pumping content out for this one, like
Yeah.
Aeon's End level of content, where it's
Yes.
like another one. That's I wanted to get to that point where it's like, fuck God, like stop, but don't stop at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that's my 65, and we'll see where it falls once I start playing it with the new rules then.
Yeah, yeah, I'd look that up. All right, my number 64 is the new one on the list, and I believe this was actually on. I'm like 95% sure it was on your list already, but I think it was in the 90s, maybe 95. And that is a game I showed you, and that is Barcelona.
I don't. Was this on my list? I have to look.
I could have sworn it was. I thought it was high. I thought it was higher up. At
Yeah,
least
it
I know you.
was. It was number 96.
Dang it! I was 95% sure, and I was hoping it was 95. Yeah. So I really, really like this game. Like it just kind of like fires on all cylinders for me. It's like, I mean, it's Board and Dice, which is just a company that I'm like, oh, I'll buy whatever you guys make. Because so far they haven't really made a game that I'm like, you know. Uh, and Barcelona is a game that I ended up picking up at Gen Con instead of Nucleum, which now I own Nucleum, so it all worked out. But whenever we were like originally learning this game, I was like, oh, okay, I think I got it. Like it just kind
Yeah.
of like it made sense reading the rules and having things thematically explained on why things were done just also helped a lot. But this is one game that you are going to be feeling good the entire time because you're just going to get like huge swings of points. Almost every action. Like you're gonna place a road. I mean, not huge swings, but you're gonna place a road, and then you're gonna place another road. You're like, oh, that's 4 points, and you're gonna place another road, and you're like, oh, that's 10 points, and then you're gonna look at end game scoring conditions, and then you're gonna be like, oh, hey, that's for every road you place. I'm gonna place that on my section, and then upgrade that section. So now this is a ×4 scoring.
Yeah,
You
I
just
remember that because I was going for victory points early, and I was up by a shit ton of points on you, and then in game came, and you're just like 20 points, 20
right.
points, 20 points, and I'm like, oh, bye.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And but that's the cool thing about the game is that throughout it, I was like, man, I really hope my end game thing pans out because I was in the lead for quite a ways. And then one round scoring thing happened. And then it was like, you just really wrapped. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, okay, you got 60 points off of that. But it's really neat. You place you have these two kind of like workers of various classes of lower, middle, or upper class, and you place those kind of like in between those green square sections. Um, and then you're going to do those actions of where they cross. So kind of like I think Targi kind of does something similar to that. But I really like that. I like the fact that whenever you're building buildings, you can either follow what Serda vision was, or you can go the more kind of like capitalist route, which is not what he wanted. Um, but you can get tons of points that way. It it's not the most complex game in the world, but it's not light either. It just has a lot of actions that you're taking that just feel good. And sometimes like super tight games are very stressful for me and I don't really have fun. This one is not that, and I have fun the entire time. So I think this one is just done and designed very, very well. Um, so yeah, we already talked about it a little bit on yours, but mine is new and up at 64.
Yep. And mine would have probably been higher. I just had our us playing it was the only time I ever
Gotcha.
really touched it. I am getting my copy here in a couple days, so
Nice.
I'm sure it'll be one that Amy will like. But yeah, anyway, good choice. All right. Well, my number 64 is a solo only game. It was 47 last year, and it really only fell because just like the common theme is just hasn't played as much, like um there I've been digging into what you're going to see is like my top 20. There's going to be some serious games I've been playing a ton this year.
Yeah.
So some big jumps up and stuff like that. So a
Hmm.
lot of these had to fall down a little bit.
Yeah.
But this
And I
one,
know it may seem like that it's like, oh man, like all their games fall. It's like, well, yeah. Like it's just gonna be natural that it
right.
like I'd be more surprised if it was like, oh, this game stayed the same. This
Yeah.
game stayed the same. Like we're super consistent. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, we play, you know, various games throughout the year that it's only natural that if a new game we really like of 2023 is going to hop in, naturally things are just going to move back. So, um yeah, it's like it's not that now sometimes whenever it's like, oh, this was number 10 and now it's number 92, it's like, oh my God, okay.
Yeah.
That's usually when I think it matters the most.
Yeah. I had a couple really big jumps up that we'll see in a few lists that, but anyway,
Yeah,
neither here nor there. This is the solo only game, and I know you enjoy this game as well. And that is Under Falling Skies.
nice.
Um, this is one of those that I just kind of bought on a whim because it wasn't a very expensive game. And it ended up being because it's a small box game, but it has so much content in that little box for
Hmm.
it's a solo game as well. Um, it's kind of a like Space Invaders, if you remember that video game where stuff's kind of or or whatever Galaga or whatever, where the things are kind of coming down towards you, and you're trying to find ways to take them out. Um, but like the stuff starts up at the mothership's up here dropping space fighters, and it's going to keep moving down. All the while you're rolling dice and you're messing with energy, shooting off guns, building stuff down here, and just trying to protect your base more or less. And with it being a solo game, there's a lot of it's pretty intense, with the decisions and trying to get things to set in the right spot. Um, and what's cool about it is it has just your basic game, but then underneath there's all these like the campaign kind of thing,
Yeah.
where you're playing in different locations that have different setups and different stuff like that. Um, but yeah, and just to think that this game came from a print and play. It was a nine. This game came from a 9 card print and play game in 2019,
Mhm.
and CG picked it up and kind of turned it into this. And it's this one is worth like this game retail without, I mean, paying full MSRP was like $29,
Yeah.
and you get a lot of crap in that game for a solo game. This one's it
Yeah,
hits hard.
but that's what CGE does, right? Like they just have these games that one, they don't do Kickstarter, and their games just have tons of content in it, except for Sanctum. But the
Expansions.
yeah, I mean that game would do well with expansions. This one was my 120 something. It was in the 120s, I think. I'm trying to find it now, but I can't. I cannot. Where the hell is it? I swear I looked at it. Anyway, yeah, no, this one is just the most simple of dice placement, but so difficult to make those decisions.
Yes.
It's like, okay, if I put a 5 here, then that's going to be amazing for that action. But oh my God, that's going to move that stupid ass ship 5 spots and land on this ability, which is going to move the mothership down.
Yeah.
Ugh. Okay, but if I place a die over here to modify a different die, and then yeah, like certain scenarios, it's like because sometimes you don't have to move that little orange cart.
Yeah.
You can kind of like deal with what you have, but eventually you will have to move it because you're like, well, I can't get over this green number. I can't remember what the research number, so I have to be able to unlock that double green spot.
Right.
And I think what is it? Yeah, when you place the white dice, you re-roll. You have
Yes.
to re-roll all the remaining dice. So it's like sometimes you'll roll the perfect number on a white, and you're like, I don't want to re-roll my other dice. So you try to like feed. Yeah, it's such a brilliant design for how small that game is.
Yeah. It,
There it is.
it surprised the shit out of me because I just bought it, like
Hmm.
I said, on a whim. I saw CGE and a solo only, and I was like, I'll just get it.
Yeah,
And it ended up just being almost a masterpiece in my
yeah,
mind, just for solo
yeah.
games.
It is 126 for me. And the only reason it's on my top 100 is because still I'm not a solo gamer.
Right.
Like it's very hard for me to want to set up a solo game instead of read or play a video game.
Yeah.
Um, so, but usually, obviously, whenever I'm doing solo games, it's for the channel, and that's it.
Yep.
But good pick. It's a very good game. I am getting more solo games in my collection. So like 20 strong.
Mhm.
This one, Witchcraft, Final Girl. I think that's it.
Final
But it depends
Girl
on
is the
how
most.
often those. What?
Final Girl is the most. Like you think solo games are small, and then you have all this damn Final Girl crap.
They,
It's
it
like,
is, yeah, it has to be the biggest Final Girl or Final Girl. Has to be the biggest solo only game.
yeah.
Um, anyway, good pick. Really like this game. Um, my number 63 fell, which is actually very surprising. I'm wondering if because I know this game should be higher, 100%. It was 48 last year, and it was new last year. Um, I'm wondering if I can't remember if I played the expansion to this after making the top 100, and if I did, I might have just forgotten to bump it up. But this game should 100% be higher. I almost guarantee it'll be higher next year, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe this is where it's going to be. Um, and that is Arc Nova.
Oh wow.
I know, right? Obviously it's way higher than Terraforming Mars, so I like Ark Nova a lot more. Its expansion, Marine Worlds, I think it was what it was called, was
Yes.
such a welcome expansion. That thin box had so much content in it and changes to the game that greatly enhanced this. If you're not familiar, I mean, Ark Nova is insanely popular, would be probably in a lot of people's top tens. You're making a zoo and you are utilizing cards with various symbols, paying to get them in, matching like symbols that you have previously from sponsorships or universities, to put them into your zoo. But unlike just having the cards, you also have to have the enclosures to house them. So it's like, oh, you want Bengal tigers in your zoo? Well, that's a 4 enclosure, meaning you have to pay to install the 4 enclosure, and then you put the card down and flip it over to show that that's inhabited. So you kind of have a spatial awareness aspect of this game with the enclosures you're putting in, while also managing the abilities of these animals that are coming in. And the point of the game is you're trying to get your conservator token, and I think it's your appeal token. You're trying to get them to cross, and the first one to do that will trigger the end of the game, and then whoever has the biggest spread of those 2 tokens. And obviously, you can appeal or reputation is not reputation. I think it is appeal is way easier to get, but it's a very slow kind of trickle. Whereas if you get a lot of conservation points, that jumps in chunks. But the expansion to this, because the game was basically like, hey, take these 3,000 cards and shuffle them, put them in a stack. If you had a bunch of cards that you couldn't really get a synergy going, you kind of were at the whim of what was coming down the market. The
Right.
expansion greatly enhanced that. And well, I guess not greatly, but it enhanced it to where the deck was, or the market was siphoning a lot more. And you could get a university that allowed you to search through the deck to get a type of animal that you've been needing. So you only do that once, but it at least kind of will kickstart something, because sometimes you might get these projects that are like, hey, you get points for small animals, and all you have are big animals. And it's like, well, I can't get any small animals. Now you're more than likely able to kind of pull that off. So, and it added aquatic animals, so that's always a good thing. The coolest thing about this game, I mean, one, I actually really love that they did real pictures. Normally, I don't like that when it's from TV shows or anything, but when it's around a zoo, it's like, yes, thank you for showing me real life animals. I'm also, one thing I wish they did, which is like a lot of nature themed games do, I would have loved a little like fun fact about
Yeah.
all the creatures. That would have been really cool. Probably would have been depressing. Like, oh, did you know that only 20% of bears are still alive? It's like, oh, yay! I hate humanity. um, but that would have been nice. But the coolest thing about the game is the action selection system. You have these 5 cards, and as you just pick one of those cards to do, and depending on where it's at on the row is going to be the strength. So you kind of will do, if you really want a high level animal action, you have to do other actions to push that up to the 5 to then pop that. And that's a really neat system. You eventually will upgrade those cards. Not all of them, but you'll get, if you play well, you can get, I think, 4 of them. And
Yeah.
then the expansion added unique kind of player powers with those cards. You draft cards that will kind of change the rules of those actions. So everyone will have a different type of cool power. On top of the fact that there's different types of maps, like zoo maps to play on that have unique rules. So there's a lot of content here. And yeah, it's fantastic. So that's my number 63 Ark Nova. And the solo variant is amazing too.
Yeah. I played the solo once finally.
Just
and
once.
well, just because it is, I mean, it's one of those. There's. I'm not saying there's a lot of setup, but it's just kind of. I
Yeah,
have other games set up most of the time on the table, so I have to tear it down to put this up. A game this,
gotcha.
so. But yeah, then we'll probably talk about this later.
I'd imagine so.
All right, my number 63 is a game that I really don't think you've played, but I think you would have a blast playing it. It's a game that came out in 2011. I'm on the old game kick
Yeah, man. I mean,
time.
God, I just graduated high school when this game came out. You were
Um,
what, in your 40s?
I'm not that old. I graduated high school in 96. So,
I was 3. I was 3 years old.
um, so anyway, this game was one that I had kept hearing good stuff about, and then I finally picked it up a few years ago. Um, it has a very, very unique theme and game end resolution, and that is Last Will,
Oh,
Vladimir Suchi. This
old
game
Vlad.
is
Vlad's sucky. Fucking got him.
this game is hilarious because you I mean, the theme of it is you have this rich, I think it's uncle that has told all of his nephews, which you play as one of his nephews, whoever can enjoy their money the most gets all of his millions. So each person playing starts off with a large sum of money, and whoever can spend it all and go bankrupt first wins. So you're doing ridiculous stuff, taking your one of the stories I remember in one of my first games is like I took my horse to a fancy restaurant, and stuff like
That's not that
that.
weird.
Well, I know, but I mean, you're just doing anything you can to just blow through money.
Yeah.
You're buying property. The property can depreciate as it goes, but it gets to a point where you might have to sell the property. But if you sell the property, you don't want to sell it because then that puts more money back in your pocket. So it's like
Gotcha.
you have to
Okay.
kind of like balance that stuff. It's a worker placement game. It's one of those that you only have two workers. They're called errand boys. So, and there's like 4 or 5 decks that you can choose from. Some of them are properties, and then there's like events that take place, which is like going to the restaurant, stuff like that,
Yeah.
different expenses, and all that stuff. But you have two errand boys that you place out and do spaces with. It's not the most beautiful layout, it's really the cards is where a lot of it goes. And yeah, I mean, if nobody goes bankrupt after 7 rounds, then it's whoever has the least amount of money wins.
Okay.
So that's the difference. Like most games, it's like, oh, whoever has the most money wins, or whoever has the most victory. This one, you're just trying to just blow through it as fast as possible and be the poorest person by the end of the game to be the winner. So it's just a really neat setup. There is a second version of this game. I also have it, but I haven't played as much. But I've heard it wasn't as good. Called The Prodigals Club.
Yeah, I thought there was a sequel.
Yeah, and you're trying to get fired. Like you have a job and you're getting rewarded by being the first person to get fired, I think, is from what I understand. I only got it because when I bought this copy used from somebody, they actually had all the Prodigals Club stuff in with this, so I actually got both of them. But yeah, this one's one that I would highly recommend playing just because of its unique gameplay, where you're trying to blow through money instead of being penny pinching. And it's just a unique thing. And some of the funny stories that take place when you're like doing all these weird things to just spend as much as you can. It's just a solid one. And I think this is one of his earlier ones because he's went on to make some pretty big games too. Underwater Cities, I think, is one of his.
Yeah.
And other ones too. I'm not right off the top of my head, can't think. I know he's designed quite a few things, but Project Put Regni, that's another one that's decent. But yeah, I mean, this one would be one to definitely search out, and it's not super expensive, and it's a good time.
Cool.
Sure.
Cool. Yeah, I added it to the list because I've only heard good things.
Hmm.
All right. My number 62 is, I don't really have a good segue. It was number 44 last year and number 91 the year before. This game has had an expansion. I think just the one. And then um the other one that's in this series I think had two. I don't know why I clicked on videos. But this one is fantastic, and it is Paladins of the West Kingdom by Shem Phillips. And now I'm not a huge fan of Architects, but considering Paladins and Viscounts from the West Kingdom series, I think both of those games blow the South Tigris games out of the water. Like these games are just so well designed that it just feels like the perfect balance, whereas the other games are like, this is a little much. But Paladins is a worker placement game where you utilize different colored workers to do various actions, and it's not the most complex game in the world, but it's also it's kind of up there. Like you want to be super efficient with your workers, and whenever like the left side of your board are actions that you're doing to kind of make the right side of the board cheaper, which is where you are building different types of buildings, garrisons, or I think it's like farmhouses or getting walls built, um, all to try and get, of course, end game victory points. And in what's cool about this game is that you're trying to move up on these various tracks, like there are the three tracks, red, black, and blue, and doing actions at certain locations will cause different like if you're doing an action that's going to be like, oh, this one is going to deal with red and blue, that's going to affect those tracks. So because you can get a ton of points if you can get those all the way up. But at the beginning of the game, or each round, you're drafting certain colored workers. You're getting cards that will give you these types of workers. So it's about being efficient with those workers and how you're going to utilize them to be able to get more workers so you get more action economy. It's not super tight of a game where you're like, okay, if I don't do everything perfect, then I'm not gonna be able to do much. But it's not so loose that you're gonna be able to just constantly swap in and out and get whatever color you need and do all the actions that you want to do. You kind of have to pick a lane or a few lanes and hope that that works. Like a lot of his games, you're drafting or not drafting, you're picking cards, like citizen cards that like you can either trash them for an instant ability or you can hire them to stay in. So like, oh, hey, every time you discard a card, you get 2 coins. Or every time you place this worker, you get a provision. So for kind of like different builds that you're wanting to go. Also, you're trying to, I think, is it convert? I don't think it's convert in this one. Um, oh, it's the Vikings that are attacking. So I think maybe you are trying to convert because this is Paladins. Yeah, so you can either defeat enemies as they're coming in, or you can convert them for endgame victory points, like different endgame conditions. So there's a lot that's going on in this game. Another really cool thing is like there are these contract cards that have conditions that you're trying to meet, but as they unflip, they're worth more points because it's towards the end of the game. So if you can pull it off that it's like, hey, at the end of like there's 2 rounds left, but I'm gonna try and go for this contract card to try and get the victory points for it. It's like it makes sense because you had less time to get it done. And then as the course of the game is going, new worker placement spots will go that are better than like what you currently can do. So there's a lot that's going on in this game that is just done so well. Like it's honestly fantastic. The expansion, I've only played a couple times with the expansion, but if I remember right, it kind of opened up the game a little bit more. You had a little bit more freedom, different workers to go to different locations, so it made it a little less tight also. So I do recommend the expansion, but the base game for this is just super solid. I think it almost seems like he's trying to outdo himself
Yeah.
with the South Tigris series. He's like, because he's like at the top with this West Kingdom series. He's like, oh, now I got to try something different and something that's equally as good. But I don't think it's taken. I don't think people are as enamored with the South Tigris series.
Yeah, this is the latest game of all those I've played. I haven't played Viscounts or
Okay,
anything past that. So
gotcha. Well, I mean, this one's still
Raiders is still my favorite.
right. I know a lot of people like that one. This one just kind of tickles my brain a little bit.
Yep.
So that's my number 62, Paladins of the West Kingdom.
All right. My number 62 is a game, it's a deck building game that says it plays up to 4, but if you play it with more than 1, you're either a moron or you're just not looking for a great time. And that is
Oh,
Apex Theropod deck building game, especially the collected edition. So yeah, this one it uses your same basic deck building rules, but you're going to choose a species of dinosaur at the beginning, and it's going to have its own deck, and you are trying to live through the environment, because there's these environmental things that keep popping up, and you are also trying to build your population and evolve to be more lethal and be a more like apex predator. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of this game. The reason it's really a solo only, because it just doesn't make sense when you're running, because we played 2-player on this when we were doing the run through, and it doesn't make sense on how you do the end
right.
boss
You
battle,
each
I
have
guess.
your own Apex
Yeah, and it's just
thing.
kind of weird. So
It'd make a little bit more sense if, like, in a multiplayer game, if you had to fight each other.
yeah, because the Apex is the last man standing. You'd think it would be
Right.
semi co-op or something. I don't know. But anyway, you are building up your stuff. You put eggs down. You hatch. You're going to evolve your characters by putting in different versions, more grown up versions or advanced versions of your species. I love the trait cards. Like, the art's really cool on all the stuff anyway, but the trait cards like this right here are also really neat looking when they have all the different ones that have like DNA going on. It's kind of a neat little setup. But the environmental things that happen are really cool. If you get the collected edition like this, I mean, they have tons of dinosaur options, even ridiculous ones, with robotic, the whole robotic dinos and the
Oh yeah, the mech
the
dinos.
zombie dinos. I mean, I've never touched those because those just don't appeal to me right now. But and then there was the megalodon, which thematically doesn't really make sense. But the quick story with this is, this was a Kickstarter game from a handful of years ago, and it didn't fulfill entirely. And a lot of people were left without stuff. And this company that's from around Kansas City picked up this game and put it back on Kickstarter, and then they put it out pretty much the exact same stuff with all the content. But then what was cool is they actually gave the backers that didn't get stuff the stuff they were missing, so it was a really neat gesture on their part.
Yeah.
Because one of the Chads had that happen to him. That's how I knew that stuff, because he ended up getting all his stuff after the Kickstarter and all that stuff, even though he didn't have to back it. And I've been waiting. I don't even know if this company has put out anything else. It's Outland Entertainment, so I think this is it.
Yeah.
But it's a publisher located in Kansas City, Missouri. So they do comics and graphic novels and games and stuff. So anyway, it was a really neat thing that they did to pick this game up and put it out, because it had kind of been a dead game, out of print game. It was going for lots of money. They put this Kickstarter out, put it all in one big box, and that way it got it back out there again more.
Mm-hmm.
and I've been kind of sitting back waiting. I don't think they're the type. I think they just picked it up and put it out as is. That's why I think the Megalodon and all that crap was in it. I don't think they're designing.
Oh,
Uh,
no.
I
I
think
would
they
imagine
they
that,
just put
like,
it out distribution wise, and
yeah, for this one, for Subterra 2, for Street Masters, I think those people are just taking what was designed and
yeah,
getting it out there. So, which is good. At least there are companies out there that are like taking on that responsibility, because man, that would just be a headache
well, because I was
to
hoping for like a water version of this. That's what I was kind of hoping
hmm
for with the Megalodon. I think that was the direction they were heading.
yeah. And who knows if the previous companies were reached out to try and get someone to take it from them,
Yeah.
or I don't know how all that logistics works, but at least people still get their game,
Yep.
like, which doesn't always happen.
So yeah, if you want a good solo deck builder, I mean, this is right way up there on that list. I mean, if
Yeah.
you like those two things, so
Yep. I'd agree. This one is good. I thought about getting it myself, but like I
yeah.
said, I don't play games solo
Mhm.
on my own time. All right. And the last one for this segment, number 61. Fell a ways, but this one is one that, like, again, if I play it, I'm like, yeah, this is a blast. And this is a game I actually showed you, one that I don't think you would ever pick up on your own, but you would play again, 'cause I think you had a good time. It was 22 last year and 38 the year before. And this is from a company that is basically dog shit now, but this was back whenever they weren't dog shit. And that is
Oh
Rice
yes.
Busters. Project Brill. Yeah, this was back whenever Mythic Games actually, didn't try to, you know, not embezzle, extort money from its
Yes.
backers. Because this was one that they actually produced, made, and even though there was like a bunch of issues, they provided an errata pack to kind of fix the misprints and stuff. So maybe that was a sign of things to come, where all their games needed errata packs. So, but they, this one is just pure fun. Like, if you love like the Wolfenstein series, this one, I know there's a Wolfenstein board game, but this one really is just kind of like just pure fun. Going in and uh, killing a bunch of Nazis, trying to complete a scenario, and getting weird, mysterious, enhanced magical guns. There are a ton of characters to play that have their own deck of cards that are kind of like multi-use. Some of them are multi-use, like they have their special cards, but then they have another set of cards that you can do a top action or the bottom action, as you've seen Gloomhaven, or more likely Fireteam Zero is kind of the way
Yeah.
I look at it. Um, but this game utilizes a lot of really cool elements that feel very video gamey. Like, you have like an alert system where if you're walking through like a hallway and you make a noise, if there are guards on the other end, they'll become alerted. And if they are alerted, then they'll go to check it out. So kind of imagine like if you play Dishonored or something, or any Assassin's Creed game, how it's like they have the yellow bar above them, and that slowly fills up, and then it's like, oh, okay, that filled up because you stayed inside. Now it's red, and now they're alerted and they're going to come after you.
Right.
It utilizes that exact same thing. You uh like, you can be chased, you can stealth. Like, some characters are really good about being stealthy, so they don't make a lot of noise rolls. And then you can just kind of sneak into like a little like lounge area with like four guards in it, and then just kind of like do a bunch of, knife kills and just take them all out. And you're like, huh, feel like a badass. But almost inevitably, the alarm will go off, and then it's kind of like all shit hits the fan. All the guards now are on alert, going after you. They'll swarm and chase you down the hallway, and you're like, well, time to use this grenade because noise doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
um, yeah, and then they have a ton of replayability, tons of scenarios and layouts for the game. You can either do the smaller ones where they have these really big missions where like the board takes up the whole table. Um, yeah, it's an absolute blast. I love the noise system in this
Mm.
game. It it really just works. And then you have different like enemy kind of like actions where you can shuffle this deck of cards and it's like, okay, well, these are the enemies we have. Like, and they have big, massive, kind of monstrous kind of creatures, as well as regular Nazis, regular guards and dogs and stuff. But the cool thing about the game is the fact that there are a ton of different characters that have different ways they play, the noise system, the alert system, getting in and out, getting in, doing a mission. It's just pure fun. Obviously,
Yeah.
it fell because I haven't played it, because it is kind of a beast to play. It's not the easiest game to set up and remember the rules, but other than that, yeah, when I do play it, it's always a good time, and it's one of the few Mythic games that I still own. So that is my number 61.
Yeah, I had fun playing this when we played it back in the day.
Cool. Back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day, a couple of years ago. All right, my number 61 to round out this list has been kind of falling the last couple of years, and I'm sure it's just because it hasn't been hitting the table very much. I haven't even bought the newest expansion for this yet. Even mainly because I haven't played half the crap that I own for this game anyway.
No.
It's a game you haven't talked about yet, and I don't know. I'm assuming it's going to be in your top 100, but maybe it had fallen off as well. And that is Smash Up. This one, it was a 2012 game, I want to say, so keeps my list of old games going here.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it did fall out of my top 100. 163.
Yeah. So I mean, it's one of those, like, it's still a really good game, a really fun game, but I think it's hit its saturation point. It's
Yeah.
hit that point. So it's like, I need to get it out and play it again because it's just one of those things, you know.
Yeah, I
You're-
actually
you're-
did play this game last year. Funny
Yeah.
enough, but I played it with someone who is probably just severely on the spectrum,
Oh, yeah.
and they like we did a draft, I think, because he didn't
Mhm.
want to just do random. Like that wouldn't have been fun.
Right.
So he's like, so he really wanted to pick. So he picked what did he pick? He picked robots and something else. And yeah, it like almost sucked the fun out of the game because he was just like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and that means this robot's gonna do this, and it's just like, okay, so you're playing your own game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's funny, he lost because we were playing a 3-player game, of course, and I threw the game to make the other person win because I wasn't gonna win. He just annoyed the hell out of me. So I was like, and he was sitting there staring at the board. He's like, "Did you really just let her win?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did."
Yeah. So I mean, it's still a good game. I mean, I'm
is.
not. It's not that I've lost anything for it. It's just there's just so much to it, and it just hasn't hit the table, and there's just so many decks out for this right now.
Yeah.
Um,
They
it's
just
one,
released a normal expansion too.
yeah. There was one that just came out like what, a couple months ago that I
Yeah,
need to
because they
pick
were
up.
releasing
But
those weird side things, the Disney
yeah,
one and
yeah,
then the Marvel one.
yeah. There
But
was
then
one
they
that popped up
actually,
that had like 4
huh?
factions or what. There was that one you're getting ready to say is like it was like 4 different
Yeah,
factions.
it was like their regular, yeah,
Right.
excellent movies, dudes, I think. That adds, um, oh, it doesn't actually say on the box, but it looks like it adds RoboCop, Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, and I'm guessing Alien.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll probably eventually pick it up at some point, but it's like
I
I
have no more
said,
room. Like, if you sleeve your cards, there's no room in that fucking box anymore.
yeah.
Like, I think I used to have the Munchkin cards, like, still in, like, the bigger, geekier box,
Hmm.
but I eventually took them out because I'm like, well, I sleeve all these cards. And to
Right.
be fair, I have like premium, they're thicker sleeves and they
Yeah,
really
yeah. So
should
I
be
used to.
like they're so I should probably like replace those with cheaper sleeves. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they're
Yeah.
gonna do with this, but it did fall out of my top 100.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever get rid of it, but
No,
it's gonna bounce
Smash Up is
around.
always a blast when you play with
It
people who are
is.
fun to play with.
Yeah. Yeah. It isn't getting played right now. That's why it's been slipping.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, if
it's
you're refined to 1 or 2 players, Smash Up is not it.
yeah.
But yeah, this is a very fun one to. I still remember taking it to like game days, random game days, and just be like, oh, let's do the randomizer app.
Yep.
And then just having a blast with it, just the different synergies of the decks. But yeah, it's still good.
Yep. So that's my 61 smash up.
All right. All right. Well, good. Another good section of games. This has been fire. So yeah, that was that for this segment. So almost nearing the end of the top 50 or the bottom 50. So stick around for that. Let us know what you think of these games in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.